Hi everybody. Today I want to do a short video on a review of translating word phrases into expressions. Now this is something we've actually already done in past videos, but I just want to do a few more examples now that we're working a little bit more heavily with variables and then also with signed numbers as well. So what I have here are some keywords, and I think we've seen all of them. There may be a couple additional ones here. So if you want to rewrite this chart, it's a good time you can pause the video and write down these keywords if you don't already have them. Or even if you do have them, and you just want everything all in one place, that could be a good time to do this as well. We're going to be doing a lot of examples with word phrases and word problems throughout the course. So it's good to have these keywords easily accessible. So just to review them quickly, you have addition. So some words that could mean addition are some, plus, added or added to, more or more than, increased by, total. So those tend to be our main ones for addition. For subtraction, we often see words like difference, minus, subtract or subtract from, less or less than, decreased by, or some sort of comparison or change. So one thing we often saw here was the phrase, how much more, or how many more. Now, I know we're using that keyword more there, so you do have to be careful. Keywords are helpful, but they're not everything. So you have to also read the context of the problem. So here, even though we see that word more, it's not so much an addition problem. The question is about change. How much more? How many more? So because we're comparing two items, we're looking at the change between them. That is often subtraction instead. For multiplication, keywords are product, times, obviously multiply. Of is very popular, particularly once we get to fractions, decimals, and percents. Twice, so if you see twice, you want to think multiplication times 2. Triple would be multiplication times 3. And double is another way to write multiplication times 2 as well. And of course, you have others. Quadruple would be times 4 and so on. And then for division, quotient tends to be the main one there. Obviously, the word divide or divided or divided by. Per is one that we sometimes see with word problems, things like miles per gallon or miles per hour. That per usually indicates some sort of division. Not always, but a lot of times. Into, right? How many times does something go into another? That is division. Or if you're breaking down or sharing things equally, that also usually represents division. So there are just some of those keywords, just again, as a little reminder here, so you have those written down. All right, so let's do some examples here. Okay, so we're going to write each phrase as an algebraic expression, which means to take the words in English here and transfer them into math. That's really what we're looking for. And we're going to use X as our variable. Now, really, you can use any letter you want. Sometimes people like to use N for a number instead, but we're going to use X here just to be consistent. So that's one thing you just want to be careful when you're doing your homework. If they do specify which variable they want you to use, make sure you use that variable. If nothing is specified, then you could have your choice, let's say on exam or something like that. But if it does ask for a specific variable, you want to make sure you use that variable. So here we're going to use X. So here we have a number increased by 3. So again, I don't know what the number is. We're letting that number be X. So a number represents X, increased by. Now, there's nothing really going on here. It's a pretty basic phrase. So increased by refers to addition, and then 3. So our phrase here is just becomes X plus 3. A number less -5. So again, a number is just x in this case. Now, less does mean subtraction, and there's no than, it's just less. So if it's just less, it's regular subtraction, and then you have a -5. So I have x minus -5. So that's the original phrase. If you do want to simplify that, or if the question asks you to simplify, then you would want to clean that up, because what's going to happen is this would change to addition, and this would change to a +5. So if you have to simplify, you would want to simplify that to x plus 5. So here, very similar example, but I'm throwing in the word than. So you still have the number, and here I have less than -5. So when you see that word than, it's going to reverse the order. So what happens is you still have subtraction, but the -5 goes first, and then I have the minus x. Now, if you want to, you could also write this as -5 plus -x. That would be the same thing. Here, I'm not necessarily going to change it over. The reason I did here is because if you have minus and negative, we do want to simplify that, because we can cancel those negatives out. But here, you can just leave it as regular subtraction if you like. Another word that also reverses the order is that word from. Okay. So 6 subtracted from a number, again, that number we're just using x, but because we're reversing the order here, it's going to become x minus 6 instead. Now, sometimes you'll see these words than and from with addition questions too. So technically they reverse the order, but because addition is commutative, it really doesn't matter so much. But with subtraction and with division, order is really, really important. So you do want to be careful there. All right, let's do a couple more examples. Just get some practice in. So let's see, we left off with E. Okay. The product of -1 and a number. So if you want to take that key list back out, so I know I changed my page over here, but if you want to leave this out in front of you, that's a great thing you can do if you're having trouble. And you'll see that that keyword product refers to multiplication. So it's in our multiplication column. So I'm going to be multiplying here, and I'm multiplying -1 and a number. And again, a number we're just using as x. So I have -1 times x. And I can clean this up a little bit, so I don't really need the multiplication symbol in between. We can write it as -1x. Or we often drop the 1 and we write it as -x. So all three of these mean the same thing. Let's say I have triple a number. Again, the number is going to be x, and triple means times 3. So this becomes 3 times x, or just 3x. And here I have the quotient of -18 and a number. Now, quotient, you want to remember, it means division. So product means multiplication. The number we're going to use x. Now with quotient, it is important to go in order. So it doesn't have any other keywords like than or from in this case. That we don't usually see that as much with division. So we're going to go in order. So it's going to be -18 divided by x, or -18 divided by x. Typically write it one of those two ways. You do have your little division bar for long division, but we don't often use that unless we're using long division here. So that would be really our final answer. With that -2, if you want to, when you have the fraction form, sometimes people will write the negative out front, but You can really write it in the top, the bottom, or out front. Usually these are the two ways we tend to see it, either in the numerator or just in front of that fraction bar. All right, I'm gonna do a couple more examples and just take it up a little bit more. So let's say we have something like twice a number increased by -5. Okay, so now we have two phrases here in one sentence, sort of. So just break it down. We know twice means times 2, so 2 times, and we know the number is going to be x. So that first part here becomes 2x. That comma is going to just indicate that we're kind of doing something different now. So increase by 5, I don't really have much going on here. It's just a pretty straightforward problem. So increase refers to addition, so plus -5. All right, so here's one that's a little bit harder. 4 times the sum of a number and 2. Now, we know the number part is going to be x. And sum refers to addition, right? So we're going 4 times, we're multiplying by 4 here, the sum of a number and 2. So this is a little bit different. Here we're talking about the sum of a number and 2. So this part here becomes the number plus 2, right? That's our sum. And then we are taking that 4 times, and that 4 times is not multiplied by a number, but it's multiplied by a sum here. So what's going to happen is this becomes 4 times the whole sum. So you really want to be careful of that wording. What are you multiplying by? Here we had twice a number. So that 2 is being multiplied by a number, so it's 2x. Here we have 4 times the sum. So we're multiplying by the entire sum. So that whole sum has to go in parentheses there. So this would be our final answer. If you needed to simplify it, we could go ahead and distribute here and get 4x plus 8. So it just depends on how you need to write your final answer. Okay, so I'm going to change the wording just a tiny bit here. I'm using basically all the same words, but I've rearranged them. So now it says the sum, so again, we're adding, of 4 times a number and 2. So here, that 4 times a number part, we're multiplying 4 times a number. So this is going to be 4x. And we're taking the sum of these two things. So it's 4x plus 2. So this gets where it gets really tricky. You want to really be careful of the difference of the wording. Here it's 4 times the sum. So if you see something like 4 times the sum, then you know you're using parentheses. Here I have 4 times a number. So I'm using 4x, and the sum is how I'm connecting the 4x and the 2. I'm going to do 2 more here. So here I have twice the difference of a number and 3. So the number is x, we know that. Difference refers to subtraction, and twice means 2 times. So you want to be careful here. We're doing twice, not a number now, twice the difference. So this is going to be similar to this one here. So you're doing 2 times the whole difference. So the difference is a number and 3. If you need to distribute to simplify, you could do that too. All right, I guess I'm on L now. All right, last one. So the quotient of 5 times a number and 6. So quotient, remember, means division. So we have some sort of division here. And I am multiplying. So I'm doing 5 times a number. So we're doing 5 times that x. So this piece here is going to be 5x. And I'm doing the quotient of 5 times a number and 6. So I'm going to be doing 5x divided by 6. Or you usually write it like this, 5x divided by 6. Okay, so just looking at some of these examples, and again, taking your time, particularly with those multiplication keywords, it's easy to mix up if you're doing something like 4x or 4 and then parentheses, because you're multiplying by a whole sum or a whole difference. So here are just a few examples of how those wordings can change and what to watch out for there.